Hi, everyone, and welcome to Elevate Your Life on Dr. T TV. I'm Dr. T, and this is the place where emotionally sensitive people get the emotional tools that they need to succeed. Now, with me today is a really outstanding guest that I cannot wait to talk to and learn so much about emotional and social intelligence. So, I'm going to go ahead and read her bio. We have with us today Amy Sargent. And Amy has worked in education for over 12 years and most recently has managed operations, marketing, and client services for various organizations in the Denver area. She currently serves as executive director at the Institute for Social and Emotional Intelligence, an online educational institution that instructs leaders, coaches, and HR professionals in coaching social and emotional intelligence. This role requires strong interpersonal skills, public speaking, creative writing, and social media marketing as she connects with clients to establish solid rapport and trust. Her background in teaching and ministry has given her a unique ability to relate easily with others in a professional yet authentic manner. Amy completed her master's in curriculum and instruction at the University of Denver with an emphasis in aesthetic arts, as well as an undergraduate degree in theology from Ambassador University in Pasadena, California. She runs her consulting business, Adept Support Inc., and is a certified social and emotional intelligence coach with certifications in positive psychology, leader as coach, and the resilient leader, instilling grit. Oh, and instilling grit. Oh, I want to hear all about that. When not working, she enjoys gardening, camping, adventure travel, kayaking, swing dancing, and writing an inspirational personal narrative. So I love this as a ballroom dancer. I can't wait to hear all about this, Amy. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tracy. It's an honor to be here.
It's great to have you. So, Amy, let's just get into what it is that really, has inspired, like, what's in your journey that really inspired you to be prioritizing, as we both do, this really important part of the human evolutionary process, which is growing emotional intelligence, which we know we need oodles of right now. So, what's your journey been like that really brought you into this, set of priorities and purpose?
Yeah, great question. Love that. A few years back, I found myself kind of getting caught up in circumstances, which we all do, circumstances that weren't the most positive, and found myself on a fast downward spiral to a sort of negative place. And usually felt like I was a very positive person, but was really struggling to keep perspective, to keep positive attitude and positive outlook, and kind of didn't know how to stop that downward spiral. And I'm stumbled upon a class with the Institute. This was before I was a part of this organization, on positive psychology. And, it's that study of what's going right in our world. And
Yes.
there's not a lot of sciences that study what's going right. Usually it's a study
Yep.
of what's ailing us, what's going wrong. So just worked through this class and absolutely love the content. I started putting into practice a lot of the exercises and activities they were suggesting to develop positive emotions, to develop a more positive outlook, and they worked. And was feeling immediate, just a lift and kind of a new perspective to see out and through what was around me. And from that, just learned that it kind of doesn't matter what we're going through. We still can come out choosing what the life that we want from that. So instead of being a victim to our circumstances, we can take those circumstances, notice the feelings that we're feeling, understand why we're feeling those feelings, but then actually choose our next steps. So for me, that was it came in a crucial time. Totally was able to change perspective. I started something simple, keeping a gratitude jar.
Yeah.
Found this old colorful jar at a thrift store, and every day throughout the day made myself write down anything I could possibly find that was on the positive note. And in the beginning, I could hardly find anything.
Yeah,
I was in
that's how it
such a
goes.
funk, But here and there, I'd find something, I'd scribble it and put it in a jar. By the end of this practice, and I did it for about 8 months. The jar was full and I had to start another jar. I started to where everywhere I looked, I was seeing positive things. And I started a ritual on New Year's Eve, which is a time when most people are like, oh, get this year over. Let's start the new one. I dumped out that jar and spread those out and read all those just little tidbits of memories of good things. And I truly felt like one of the richest women on the entire face of the earth that night. And it was simply from that gratitude practice, learning to develop and choose a positive outlook. So that's where I'm at now. And now I get to teach these classes. So it's been an exciting journey.
I literally feel like we are sisters from another mother here. This is so fabulous because I really, a big part of our emotional training process that we do at Dr. Tracy Inc., it's really flipping the paradigm. Right. It's really, and it takes conditioning to do that because our cultural conditioning is a framework of what isn't working.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even realize that, but that's what's going on.
Yeah. If you ever notice when you pass someone on the street or you see a friend, you say, how are you doing? And it's so natural for us to launch in all the things that are going wrong. And it's almost not popular and not chic
to say I'm rocking it.
I'm really happy and I'm doing well. It's not a part of our everyday culture. And I agree with you. It's something that we have to learn.
And it's really, I study this as an emotional scientist. I just see the conditioning. I see that this is what's normative for people. It's been automated. Yeah. We've been developed in a society where people don't even recognize that their entire framework is scanning for what's scarce, what's not working, what somebody didn't do, what I don't like. And this negative form of conditioning, which I feel like people get confused about positive and negative, just like positive means like you're just completely Pollyanna about things, and negative means you're there's something really bad about you, rather than the reality of the what is versus the what isn't, in the way that's physics, right? What are we seeing that is occurring and is progressing and is getting better? And it's just such a phenomenal place to live that I consider like it to be an elevated existence.
Yeah. And it's weird. We're here right with everyone else in the same circumstances, the same activities. We like to call it realistic optimism. And I love that phrase because it is realistic. It doesn't mean that everything's going great all the time. It's not. It doesn't mean we don't suffer along with the next person and feel negative emotions like pain and frustration and angst and angry. And I mean, those are a real part of life, but we can feel those feelings and then choose how we want to behave going forward. And that choice was truly life-changing for me, that I don't have to be a victim to my circumstances.
It's so amazing because, like you say, this is we're in the same scenario. We're all in the matrix together, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And in reality, if your emotional framework is conditioned for pain and suffering and lack and what is the old adage would be like the glass is half empty or whatever, but that's a really good adage for a good reason, that the same exact person, the same glass of water, somebody's going, oh, it's half full, and somebody else is saying it's half empty. And this recognition, which I know I'm sure you get, that the moment you are in the awareness of what isn't, you start to feel awful, and it has a reaction pattern that just keeps going, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and everything's wrong, and then you're like, why bother? And the other,
It gets to be such a tunnel vision where you don't see options,
Does.
you don't see opportunities, you just see this. And the thing is, it's a real problem, and it really is there in front of you, but you
Yeah.
don't see anything out. And for me, I get to where I don't see any way out.
Yeah.
That problem becomes bigger and bigger, and it feels like
Heavier.
it's always going to be here and never going to go away. Just like when I remember being pregnant at about 8.5 months, and you hit this place where you're like, was I ever not pregnant? Will I be pregnant for the rest of my life? You hit this place where you can't see beyond that you're actually going to have this baby at some point. So
That is so
problems can
cute.
be like that for me. They get so big in front of you that you just don't see them ever ending. And it's not real. They really do end, and you can turn the corner.
And
So
even though
yeah.
you're talking about optimistic reality, I just recognize, and I love to share with people that we're powerful creators, and we are literally getting to choose the perspective all the time. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes that overwhelms people, like it's too big of a responsibility. And yet it's our great, powerful, creative mechanism to recognize, to me, the moment that you're seeing something that is like you're putting stuff in the jar, right? You're writing down, I'm sure you've had this experience where the moment you start writing something, even though in the beginning you're like cranking yourself to go like, what is it? Then
Yeah.
you're like, shoot, I could spend all day on this gratitude stuff because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
inspiration, I think reaction just keeps reacting in the way physics works, and inspiration keeps developing and building. And it's
Yeah.
just such an open field of opportunities that, I know this is why we're so excited to share that with people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what I find, it's like anything that you exert, like building a new muscle, building a new
Yeah.
habit. It takes practice and exercise, and even when you're well practiced, you can still choose to go down a negative route too.
Yeah.
But even that, knowing it's a choice, I'm choosing to be a bit pissy right now. I'm choosing
Yeah.
to be. Even that is empowering. That to know that I'm not in a great space, and I'm exhibiting quite a number of negative emotions right now, but to know I'm choosing that, even that is freeing. Does that make sense? So it's not about
I so
always
get
being in this
this.
happy place, but having the choice to choose the direction we want to go.
Well, to me, it's about you're being in the driver's seat, because on the occasion these days, it's really less and less and less, where I've like, let me dabble a little bit in this just to kind of see anything else I want to know about these negative emotions that I feel like I don't have the data on, or it just, whatever. It's a reaction pattern, and I've got the liberated choice. When you are coming from this place where your emotional foundation is so strong, and you know that at any moment you are literally shifting, starting to connect to your outcomes and all that's available to create them. When you know you can walk yourself through that, that is a really empowering place, because I find
Yeah.
that then you can still explore human experiences without being captive to them.
Love that phrase. Yeah, yeah. Couldn't agree more.
That's
Yep.
something. And even as I'm saying that, I'm thinking about, in the last August 2nd, my dad had passed away, and there were some really awful circumstances around it and after it. And as an emotional scientist and an emotional trainer, I thought to myself, I've pretty much equipped myself my whole life for this, but this still feels pretty big for me.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was just so grateful that I could process my experience from such a place of like connection with myself, that I could even though I was not choosing, it was not my choice to really, crush myself with the pain and the grief.
yeah,
I was so grateful, because I thought I can really explore some grief, some anger, some frustration, and things that people feel, in order to also kind of study them in a way,
mm,
and not to
yeah,
necessarily have them impact me, but to have them inform me.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then I thought to myself, without too much detail, there were some shenanigans that my dad's widow was pulling, and I had a
Mm,
lot of anger around that. And I thought, but it was objective anger, where I thought, I'm
yeah,
aware of it, so I'm not going to be at the effect of it, but I'm going to process it. And it allowed me to understand something. I thought, I see how these people end up on like Dateline NBC, and I never I was like, how could somebody do stuff to somebody? But I was so grateful that through emotional intelligence and training, that I could be living my life almost entirely in the positive paradigm of what is, but
Yeah.
also be available to explore these dark emotions so I could help I can understand them and help people with them.
Yeah, yeah, it's so not about not feeling the negative emotions.
Yeah.
I like to think of emotions as those rare dear friends we have that will actually speak the truth to us. So we have so
Yeah.
few of those kind of friends that truly will look at us and say, "Can I share something with you?" And it's that hard, honest truth. I feel like our emotions do that, and it's not about not being friends with them. I feel like we
Right.
need to tune into those emotions because they have something to say. Positive or negative emotions, they're trying to tell us something. When you're feeling anger, there's usually a reason why
Yeah.
we're feeling it. So that emotion to me is like a signal saying, "Hey, Amy, something's going on.
Yeah.
Stop a moment and feel it. Feel the depth of that emotion. Feel and start to connect it to the why." And that was a big piece for me in this.
Wow.
Is sometimes we get feeling these emotions, it hits that part of our brain that says you have to fight, flight, freeze,
Yeah.
do
And
something.
you're a
And we
prisoner.
just
Yeah.
react.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when we shoot off those texts that later we're like, oh, why did I say that? Or we
Yeah.
say something, in the moment that we wish we regret. But learning to slow down that it's that amygdala hijack, where that part of
Yeah.
our brain gets flooded by these emotions and tells us do something, to slow down that process and feel the emotion without having to react. Feel it and then
Huge.
start to connect it to why. Why am I feeling this? Well, she just said something really rude, or there's usually a reason why, but just taking the time to
Yeah.
connect it helps so much to make, then you're like, oh yeah, that's why I'm feeling that. And by that time, time has passed to where you don't feel like you need to react in the moment. It's those
Wow.
split second reactions that, if it's a truly dangerous situation,
Sure.
it's a
Sure.
protective mechanism.
You're
A
like,
car's coming, you
yeah.
get out of the way, you get out of the way. But most of our situations we're in these days aren't life and death. It's someone hurts our feelings, someone offends us, someone says something we don't like. Look at social media right now. Is it life and death
Fine.
comments on there? It's just we don't like what other people are saying, but the reactions in the moment are so powerful and strong.
God.
So for me, learning to slow down, feel that emotion, welcome it as a friend, saying, "Hey, Amy, something's not going on in you," and allowing myself to feel it. And not
Wow.
trying to categorize it right away. Is this positive? Is this negative? There was a time in life where I felt like everything was like good or bad, black or
Yeah.
white. And
Yeah.
learning to experience the full gamut of emotions is what makes us human. And it's part of the human experience. And if we try
So
to
cool.
block out those negative emotions, we're missing out on such a wholeness that we can experience as a human. So learning just to embrace them, feel them, listen to them, connect them to the why, and then make my choice how I
Make
want to move
choices.
forward. It's a whole learned process of just slowing down, feeling it, listening to the words of that dear friend, and then deciding how I'm going to behave going forward. So
This is
it's
so cool.
easier said than done, but can be done.
It's so cool, and it's why I'm so passionate. I get that we both are about, emotional training and conditioning of yourself, because I get that humans, we're built for automation, right? So that we learn something, we don't
Yeah.
have to think all the time about driving, or
Yeah.
every single time we're walking down the same street, we see a set of trees. Like, we don't have to keep telling ourselves that's this tree, or we're built to take in information, have it as a reference, and we're built for
Yeah.
automation. And yet we can be built for lots of reactive automations, because ultimately, to me, it appears like our population is a high proportion of living a reactive
Mm.
existence,
Yeah. Yeah.
and doesn't even know that, because typically we think a reaction is like knowing that you're upset, you're frustrated, you want to fire something off, or you're elevated or escalating at some point. But something that's just done automatically without what you're talking about, Amy, I really appreciate this. That there is a way that there's the information, right? There's an awareness
Yeah.
that says, "Oh, okay, something is here." There's frustration, there's irritation, Because I even think people over identify with the emotion, like it's my emotion rather than it's
Mm.
a emotion,
Yeah, yeah.
which,
People, we take it on as our identity, as if it's who we are
yeah,
versus what we're feeling and then how we
right.
behave. And that behavior is, I was just working with someone last week who is so hung up on past behaviors as defining who she is,
Yeah.
and trying to encourage her that it's not who you are, it's how you were behaving. And that's a big, it's hard to separate that out. Sometimes we take these emotions on, like you're
That's
saying,
right.
as our identity, as this is who I am. And really, it's an emotion we're feeling. They
Well,
usually are temporary. They usually don't last.
and even
Um,
as you're saying, I think of the jargon that everybody uses when they say, I'm angry, and it's like really then it's identifying rather than like, when you say even when people say I'm feeling angry, I still think there's kind of a conditioning
yeah.
that means like this is my anger rather than maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
a conditioned response to
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that you've been conditioned for. It's conditioned in our atmosphere with other people. It could be the anger coming from people 5 miles away, and we're just all in this big matrix of stuff. And I love this, what you're talking about, where you recognize something, but there's, it's, and I think it happens quicker than people think, that there's a consideration that says, and I really want people to get this, what you're saying, that not only are these emotions incredibly importantly informative, but, and I've felt that for years, but when you took it to a level that says, these are your friends that are telling you the truth, I really invite our whole audience to get that especially when you're in the objective, self-aware position, you get
Yeah.
to get the truth of that information without becoming captive to it, over identifying with it. And then like people do, they get stuck in it for a long time. Like you're talking, could be years or days or 5 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And rather than that sense of like, this is occurring, and to your other point, then what do I want to do with all of this energy and emotion, and what am I choosing as my outcome and my intention?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When we define emotional intelligence, it's that ability to be aware of our own emotions. And the key words are in the moment, not how I was feeling about this last week or what I'm going to feel tomorrow, but
Right.
right now, how I'm feeling. And listeners, if you want to try this right now, just how are you feeling right now? Can you name it? And try to be specific. If you're
Yeah.
thinking I'm angry, maybe it's you're frustrated, maybe you're disgruntled. I mean, really try to come up with a specific word. How are you feeling in the moment? And then connect that to the why. Was it a conversation that went sour? Was it something you just read? Just connect that emotion to your and try to suspend judgment on the
Yeah.
feeling that you're
Yeah.
feeling. Don't think, oh, this is a good one or a bad one. Just name that feeling and then connect it to the why. So
Huge.
self-awareness, being aware in the moment of how I'm feeling, and then we take that step of managing our behavior around that. So again, it's not stuffing the emotion in. It's not pretending I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
It's feeling it, naming it, connecting to the why, and then thinking, I'm feeling this way. I'll just use anger again for an
Yeah.
example. Is this a great time to punch a hole in the wall? Is
Yeah.
this a great time to scream? It's probably not. So are there other alternate? What do I need to do to calm down, and to actually have a choice in that process of what are the next steps?
Yeah.
And then the second half I love of emotional intelligence, we sometimes call it social intelligence,
Okay.
but it's just that second half, tuning into those around us. So it's one
Yeah.
thing to become aware of our own and managing that, but then taking it to that next step of, being able to read the person across from you. And it might not even be in the words they're saying, but learning to read between the lines. What emotions are they experiencing
Well, they
as they
communicated.
tell this to you? Learning to tune into that. Listen for the, looking at body language. Listen for the hidden feeling message that they're trying to communicate, and then learn how to validate those feelings for them. I don't have to agree with it. I don't even have to like it, but the feelings they're feeling are valid, just as our own feelings we feel are valid. Now, what we do with it, that's where we can get ourselves into trouble. But learning to value the other person beside me's feelings, even if I don't agree. I mean, do you know anyone right now that could use a little bit of learning to do that? I don't think we've ever been in a times such as this where that skill set is
No.
lost. If I don't agree with you, I cannot validate how you feel.
We can't
I'm not.
collaborate then. We just can't
Right,
collaborate
right.
on the outcome.
And we destroy relationships because of it. So
Yeah.
the second half of that social intelligence piece, we're not trying to manage that other person. If you've ever tried to manage someone and make them, that doesn't usually go real well. We're managing our relationship with them. That is something I have control over. I can manage my relationship with that person. Is this a time to speak a hard truth? Is this time to stay quiet and listen? Is this a time to offer an encouraging word? Is it a time to say, wow, that sounds rough, and leave it at that? Having that intuition to tune in and behaving in a way that manages my relationship.
Yeah. Well, at
It's
least a few things I want to follow up on with what you just said. This is major for everyone. And thinking about, like, as you were talking about, the anger and and as this example, which I think a lot of people relate to, and also feel in a lot of ways feel like powerless about this particular
yeah,
emotion, even though there's many flavors to it: irritation, impatience, frustration, agitation,
yeah,
and so many things. And I really like this, as you're aware of it, as you're getting the info. Again, I love this. These are your truth telling best friends that are giving you insight, and I love this. You connect to the why, and you get a sense of what's really occurring in this cycle of emotion.
right,
Um,
yeah,
and I love really helping people sort of understand that, even especially when that's a really very powerful emotion that has a lot of, there's a lot with something like anger. It obviously, it's got a lot of power with it that people tend to sort of, as you're talking about, text it out, or it ends up going in places that are often
yeah,
unproductive, destructive, chaotic. And
regrettable.
I really love, and like just absolutely, could check every box there in my life before. And actually taking that energy and realizing, and this is how it was really when I recognized, like, as I was processing my dad's passing and some things that had happened around it, I really felt in many ways the most angry I'd ever felt, but the most powerful, because I was like, this is a resource of energy that is going on right now.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
what do I want to do with this energy? How do I want to harness it into something that is gonna create an outcome that is gonna benefit others, benefit me, and utilize something, rather than also just say, anger bad, I don't like it, I want to run away from it, I'm kind of got to deal with it. And I found that I could create some of the greatest things that I've ever created
mhm,
through taking what was ultimately pretty painful, even objectively speaking, and
yeah,
choosing
yeah,
how I was gonna channel it, where I was gonna put it. And I
yeah.
produced a lot of good stuff, and in some ways a lot more stuff when the opposite of that would be sort of like people retracting in life and feeling like, because something painful is occurring, that they're in a process of temporary disempowerment,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know
And I think it's just a protective mechanism. I mean, we learn this stuff when we're so young. And, until you do the work to go back and realize, where did I learn this coping mechanism of
Yeah.
when I get angry? And something I've been working on just recently, I notice when I get angry, I get like the cry feeling, which is so annoying. I wish I could just like scream and yell or
Yeah.
do something a little more that looks angry. I get like choked up, like I'm gonna cry, which makes me feel weak. And
Ah.
where did I get the connection of weakness to tears? So just
Mm.
going back and kind of tracing the sources of these coping mechanisms. So when I get that cry feeling, I think, oh, I need to turn away, I need to hide my face, I need to leave this anger, and then I'm never hearing what it has to say. So just recently learning to recognize the physical signals in my body when I'm feeling a strong emotion. What does that feel like? I mean, for me, my stomach gets like a bit of a sick pit.
Mhm.
I get that lump in my throat. I actually have tears well up, and knowing, so, oh, I'm feeling that something's coming. Something is trying to be said, trying to be told. So learning to tune into those physical symptoms, instead of those coping mechanisms we do, like you said, we draw inward, we turn away, we hide them. So many people do the hiding thing. It's easy.
Retracting.
It's easier to hide. yourself, then you don't have to deal with it. And then you turn out to be 55 years old and you find you're still hiding from these same issues. And it's like you said, it's so not productive. So it takes some bravery to face these emotions head on. It takes some bravery to let ourselves feel them and not feel like we have to hide, and no shame there. We all do it. We all have these protective mechanisms. We're just trying to keep ourselves from feeling more pain
because we don't like the so pain big feeling.
Yeah But taking those little steps in and allowing ourselves to feel even the uncomfortable emotions is huge. And just again connecting it to the why, and then thinking, you said something earlier I loved, that so many people feel like, I'm feeling this so I had to. It's as if they have no control. And I know that feeling sometimes in the moment when we're on the anger thing, but when you feel angry, like you actually get shaky where you feel like I literally can't control what's coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But we can. It just takes a little bit of practice of slowing down and not learning to act instead of react. That's something I've been trying to tell myself. I don't need to react. I can stop and then act.
Right, because you're literally as I study this, I just keep studying the chain of reactivity that happens and how this is physics. So what they say is an object in motion stays in motion until acted upon by another force. And I really do get into the physics of what's going on, because things are in momentum. And if something gets acted upon that starts to shift you from a state of connected intentionality into a state of reactivity, that momentum can keep rolling. And you're like, who's moving my mouth, or who's driving my car to the store to get the Ben and Jerry's, or, whatever people do, going, to get to the bar.
It's that irrational behavior that later we think that's not me. That's not who I am. But it was in that moment. That is how we were acting out.
It was like a feeling of being captivated without really, it's like, and you're going, so part of you is going, this isn't really my jam, but it's rolling and the reactivity's going. And this is why I love those of us who are really bringing to the forefront the exceptional experience and, like you said, the courage of really like making self-awareness your main strategy for life, making a relationship with your emotions, because I feel like because of how emotions are really running everything, they're creating all of these great outcomes, and they're also creating a lot of overwhelm for people. I feel like they've had a lot of bad PR forever. And like, it's important. I feel like we're giving emotions and what they are in our life, and the ability to really use them, work with them, have everything from them that they're meant to do for us be so exciting, even when it is something like, okay, this is the grief thing, and I'm in the grief curriculum, and so I'm going to extract everything that I can experience out of what this is here to teach me, maybe about how much I love somebody or whatever it is. And so I feel like it's, we're like spokespeople for giving emotions the good PR that they need.
They need fresh PR, fresh marketing, don't they? Yeah, my generation was taught that it's not okay to cry. Leave your emotions at the door. At work, you do not bring your emotions to work. Right. I mean, that was a no way. And boy, bringing emotions along with this it opens up a whole new world of self-awareness. Again, they're just trying to tell us that something, and we've been talking so much about the negative emotions. What about the positive ones? That giddy, crazy, excited feeling you get when you've got a new project going, or you meet a new acquaintance where you connect, and that same thing on the positive emotions. We need to bring these into our work, into our relationships, into every aspect of life. It's not something we can really like cut off of us and leave over there. I don't know how we ever thought we could leave them at the door in the first place.
Amy,
they're a part of us, and
it's so good, because I often find like, there's so much shame in feeling, and again, this bad PR of emotions, even though everybody in the world is seeking more happiness and joy, and yet learning how to be happy is actually, it's funny, people know they're doing that, but I don't think they really realize to the extent that part of it is all these limitations around, like, well, I'm striving for happiness. Our whole world is teaching how to be happy, but don't be too happy. Don't. And earlier when you said, in a conversation, it's it can be awkward if you're like, hey, yeah, I'm really grateful for this and I'm working on that. This is improving and I'm so
Yeah.
fired up about what's happening. There is a whole thing that like you're not an
Yeah.
undercurrent that people don't really, you're not really supposed to be so happy that it makes people uncomfortable with happiness,
Yeah.
that they don't necessarily have conditioning to feel that happy.
Yeah, yeah. I notice, especially in times such as now, there's all sorts of layers of stress on us right now, and it's not popular, and it's almost I'm saying almost not appropriate to be really happy right now, because shouldn't we be miserable? And I'm not saying there are not a million reasons why we can be miserable right now,
Right.
but there's also a million reasons why we cannot be miserable. And it's almost like I was talking to a friend a few weeks ago about this. It's almost like they're embarrassed to share the good things that are going
Yeah.
on in their life, because right now it's kind of more popular to say, oh, look what look how stressed I
Yeah.
am, and look how awful this is, and our family's going through this, and no shame that other people are
Yeah.
going through stuff, but it's almost like it's not acceptable to feel joy when times are hard. And I don't think there's anything more opposite that we need right now. When times are hard,
Yeah.
that's when we really need to dig deep down and find those joyous moments. Find the good, find the human moments that connect us.
Yeah. Oh my
More so
gosh.
than ever. But it's like a not it's you're right, it's not real popular to do that right now.
It's this pain bonding, which, as you said
Yeah.
earlier, when somebody gets together, even people you like, you think this is the funnest time I have spending time with whomever, friends or whatever. When you really break down, and I years and years ago, as I started to study the root of what it was creating a lot of reactivity in my family and myself,
Mm.
and how this group of really smart, successful, attractive people could have success but never feel it. And I
Yeah.
was studying. I would think to myself, I lived in New York at the time, and it was sort of the Sex and the City era, and we'd be at dinner with all the girls, and we'd be brunching or whatever, and I just really began to study the scope of our conversations and how it was all of this pain bonding that somehow made
Yeah,
it like
pain bonding.
we're in it together, and men suck, and we don't have any accountability to what's happening.
Right, right.
and
Yeah, we were reading the news the other night, and we were just playing a little game trying to let's find one positive news title. And we were scrolling, and two of us had phones side by side, and we got to laughing. It wasn't really
did you
funny, but
find anything?
for some reason it tickled us. Disaster, disaster.
Yeah.
Is that just and we just thought, oh my goodness, no wonder we all do this when we're in conversation with each other. It's kind of trendy
It's
to go from
everywhere.
disaster to disaster. And you talk to people, and just like you're saying, I love that phrase, pain bonding. It's trendy to connect over the negative things,
It
and
is.
it's time to turn that around, I
It
think.
is so time to turn that around. And as I'm thinking of this, Amy, even as COVID was really in March, as it really started to go like, oh no, this is actually happening. And in
Yeah,
my end, I'm watching this, and I'm sure you were too. I'm going, wait a second. So there's a virus, but the worst way that this is, the whole thing is going to get worse by all the reactivity, right? That the virus is its own issue. The reactivity is really where the chaos is going to take this. And I knew it was going to create
yeah,
material
yeah,
outcomes, that it has negative material outcomes, even though we know we're growing by leaps and bounds at this time. And I said to my team, and we were all in this together, said, it may seem inappropriate to people, but as emotional leaders of an emotional training company, we are here to hold the highest emotional ground. We are going
mm,
to go through this whole thing growing more and more emotionally elevated and happy. And in the midst of something that would be this catastrophic, isn't that what we need to be able to get the data on? Like, if it's a
yeah,
global
yeah,
pandemic, how do we do this so that we can then bring this? And we've had, while it's been fascinating to watch, we've never grown more happy, more connected, more looking at what it is that are all the opportunities here. And I get that even as I say that for some people is really going to piss
yeah.
them off.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, here at the Institute, we train coaches to become social and emotional intelligence coaches, and classes have been humming along. We've actually never had as we have so many people wanting the class now because everyone's looking for online
Yeah.
education and training. But to see the enthusiasm of coaches looking around them, just what you explained, seeing all this negativity and thinking someone's got to stand up and help here,
Yeah.
and who's going to lead us through this. We don't know any other way of doing it. So I'm so
Yeah.
excited to be able to train teachers, leaders, coaches, HR reps, individuals
Oh.
just wanting to learn more about this. And I love at the ending of each of our 12-hour classes, love turning them out. And here they go. Now we've got, 15, 20 more people who can now reach out a hand to those who've never heard of this, noticing your emotions, becoming aware, connecting it
Yeah.
to the why, tuning in. They can start reaching out. And my hope is that one by one, we try to set the example. We train
Yeah.
others to do it. Hopefully we can slowly spread a little bit of a different perspective, on while negative things are happening, we still can find joyful moments.
I love that. You're right. I feel the same way. Turning people out into the world who have this emotional capacity and
Yeah.
who then bring that into everything that they're doing, and touching base on what it is that you were talking about. This is that other part of it that is the social intelligence part that is also able to understand, especially when you're trained for non-reactivity and you're trained for self-awareness and connection and the ability to consider, to gain the information and to choose from the data and choose your outcomes and really follow behaviorally, just act toward those outcomes. That's a really powerful thing. But the whole other piece of it, of being able to do that as you witness others in a reactive process or a down cycle, or buying into the
Yeah.
stories that is all lack and scarcity and the negative psychology versus the positive psychology. This to me is one of the most important, influential things that a person can do. And when I think about how innately we all want to change the world, I really feel like being non reactive, connected, and intentional, emotionally
Mm,
intelligent in that way, and then helping hold a space for others to be
yeah.
the same. I think this is the biggest change we can make, and sort of this big emotional strength effect
Yeah.
that is needed. Because I think to myself, all the times in my life where I was in some sort of a reactive cycle, and how people around me struggled to know what to do with that. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, you think you're being a friend, you're adding to it, you're indulging me in it, you're allowing me to keep thinking that something's more negative. And or just where people just don't know what to do, how to shift someone's attention to, like, okay, so you're feeling all of this, and what do you want to do with all of that emotion, and what do you want to create with
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
so rare for someone to be able to do that for each other in a way that
Yeah.
doesn't have the person feel like you're negating them, but feels
Hmm.
like you're just helping them get on the track to do something with all of that energy that's flowing.
Yeah, just a recent learning for me is that I think of when I'm and put yourself in this situation, and our listeners the same. Think of when you've had a really strong reaction. We'll just stay on the anger
Yeah.
kick. The last time you were really, really angry, you don't want someone to try to fix you in that
No.
moment. You also don't want them to tell you shouldn't feel that way. and so we really don't know how to respond, like you're saying, and just learning to validate people's emotions. It doesn't
No.
mean you have to agree with their how they're feeling. It's nothing about agreement. It's just simply validating it makes sense that you feel that way.
Yeah.
And so many times when we can hear that from someone, that's all it takes for us to say, okay, thank
Shift.
you, I'm validated for feeling this way. So many times we will be ready to take that next step then, but until someone validates our emotion, that's when you hear people telling the same story over and
Oh.
over and over, and you're like, did we not talk about this last week? And
Oh.
literally you're still, I use the example of I've been through a divorce, so I like to use this example. When you meet someone who's telling you about, oh, let me tell you what my ex did, and on, and then you find out they've been divorced for 25 years, and you're like, it sounds like it just happened last week, and they're ruminating round and round and
Right.
round. And I never used to get that. Like, what? they just need someone to validate those hurt feelings. And, some of it's a lot deeper and we need the
Yeah,
help of,
yeah, yeah.
counselor, psychotherapist, etc. But for the most part, validating someone's emotions. And why can't we validate that? We've all felt them before. I might not have felt them over that same exact situation, but I know what pain feels like. I know what disappointment feels like. I know what anger feels like. I know what giddiness and joy. And we all connect, no matter what color we are, no matter what shape we are, no matter where we live, our jobs, our money.
Yeah.
We all feel the same emotions. And why it's so hard for us to validate each other, I do not know, because we're
Wow.
that's the part of this life we're all in together. We have so many walls up between us, and
Yeah.
real walls between us. We have differences, but we all feel these same emotions. So learning how to validate each other, it's so hard to do when you don't agree with someone. It's
Yeah.
I mean, I struggle too, but we really can learn how to validate someone else's feelings. And then once we're validated, then we can kind of take that deep breath and say, okay, now what?
This is such an important example, Amy, because you are so right about the way that people, and this is what I study as well, the way that people, they just keep recycling the same pattern. Right. And if somebody could just say, how are you doing today? And we've all been where it's like the person,
There they go.
they
Yep.
might start on something about the traffic, and then it's not a far leap from like the 25-year old divorce. And people are not, and I think this intervention that you're talking about is why emotional training is so important. So, because it feels to me sometimes like people either kind of don't even realize that a person's in a cycle because it's so typical.
Yeah.
And then if they are, we're still, this is where the emotions and the bad PR has been. It's like somehow we're afraid of it, so we just kind of ride it out, which doesn't
Yep.
help you or the person, because now you both feel like, yeah, I realize how bad my divorce was. And
Yeah.
it's this
Yeah.
way that people feel like emotions feel too big for them, whether it's ours or someone else's. And these very beautiful interventions about like, got it, makes sense that you feel that way, and you start to facilitate just the next opening of like, and so how about now, what are the things that are really important to you now?
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and people think like, oh my god, I got to get out of the way of something like that, especially if it's a real big cycle somebody's having.
Yeah.
And what we're all needing is everyone to not back away from the emotion, but to just help refine what's going on, for support the person. Like you say, there's a validating process and there's a directing process that
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
have to be like you're sitting there to be in therapy. You're really being a partner in life with people that way.
Yeah. And how can we not? We get it. We've been there too. We've all
Oh,
felt those same, name an emotion you haven't felt, that I
oh,
haven't felt, that they haven't felt, where that's the one thing that really connects us worldwide. So I love what you
huge.
just said about sometimes they feel like they have to get this huge, big emotion kind of out of the way before they can move forward. And, the truth is some of these past pains are going to be with us for a long, long time. It's not like you can pretend it didn't happen. And even something that did happen 25, 30 years ago, can still trigger that. It's not like you're ever going to look back at it and think,
Yeah.
that was wonderful. It's a pain there. But while we're feeling that pain, we can start to take steps towards positive. There's simple things like getting out and exercising is a known fact that it puts feel good hormones into your body. So even when you're in the pain of something, to get out and take a walk, or I love Via Character Strengths. They have a survey. It's a site via VIA. You can take a survey to find out what your character strengths are, what your signature strengths are. And they found that doing more of those top signature strengths bring about positive emotions. So for me, mine is my top one is appreciation of beauty and excellence. So I know that when I'm in a bad funk, instead of waiting for that to go away, I need to actually get out and take a walk in something that's absolutely beautiful. Get me to water, get me to something that's beautiful. And I start to
Yeah.
feel those feel good emotions. That pain is still here and it didn't make it go away or fix it, but I'm doing something that starts to bring in those positive emotions.
Right.
And we just need to, get some more positive in to let those negative ones, it's not going to make it go away, but it gives us a little bit more balanced perspective that it's not all bad. So even before it's fixed or whatever phrasing we want to put around this thing that's so negative for us, we still in that moment can get out. We don't have to wait till that's gone.
Right.
You don't wait till you feel good to go do things that make you feel good.
Yeah.
So
that's so
that's
good.
been another new learning for me, that even in the moment, get out, take a walk, get a change of scenery, take a deep breath, anything to shift, to bring in those positive emotions. And we need to know what brings us positive emotions.
So true.
Yours are going to be different than mine, and the next person's are going to be different, but identify what it is, what makes you feel that giddy feeling. What makes your heart sing is one of my favorite corny phrases. What makes your heart sing? And then get out and do as much as that as possible, especially in those times when you're in a negative place.
Especially when you're most resistant to it. And what you're really speaking to is I would say we are just such powerful creators, and our ability, and our internal joke is like, we're powerful creators, whether we're creating a mess or a masterpiece.
That's good, yeah.
And yet we have all this power over the frequency that we're in and how to elevate it and experience different aspects of it. And I love what you're talking about with these signature pieces. For me, I really just give me a puzzle to solve. I really do love figuring out what's going on with somebody's stuff or my stuff, or I start to feel in purpose, and it starts to elevate my frequency. And Amy, I know that everything that we're sharing today and collaborating on is all part of what people learn when they really move toward when they really see that emotional intelligence and social intelligence is really the foundation for people's lives and everything that they can build from that. Are there other things that you want people to know? Because I feel like we've really given some great examples today of it, but other things you want people to know about what they can learn, from you and the work that you do?
Yeah, here at the Institute, we run classes every month, and it's literally a training course for coaches. You don't have to be a coach going into it, but a lot of coaches take the course because they want to add this to their expertise. And then we get individuals who've never done coaching at all. We teach a coach approach to how to help others increase their emotional intelligence. So with that comes assessment training, how to administer and debrief the assessments, how to set up, how to have a coaching conversation. A lot of us have never been taught how to have a conversation with someone, to hear them, validate them, but also nudge them along towards growth. So we really spend a lot of time on the coach approach to working with someone. It's really about asking rich, open-ended questions to help that person, the individual, come to the answers. I always tell our coaches, we're not the experts on our clients, they are. And our goal is here just to walk alongside them and to ask the kind of questions that help them make sense of the story that they've been telling themselves. We all have these stories, from childhood, we tell ourselves we're good at things, we're not good at things. And we tell ourselves these stories our whole life. So as coaches, I feel like our role is to help people uncover their story. First, recognize what's that story that I'm telling about myself, and then ask a few simple questions. Is it true? It may have been something that happened to me when I was 12 and now I'm 50 and still carrying that same story. It might not be true anymore. Is it true? And then I like to ask, is it serving you well? And is it serving others well? And if it's not, then maybe it's time to tell a new story. Maybe it's time to make a shift. And it can be overwhelming, like you said earlier, but making one step, one shift in a new direction can be the start of a new story that actually is true and that does serve us well, and it does serve others well. So there's so much hope in the message, and I hope that doesn't come across as corny. There really is hope. We don't have to stay stuck with behaviors that keep tripping us up.
I know,
we can
and
actually
people
make
think
shifts.
They think that
Well,
they
yeah.
think that changing, whatever age they are, like that they really make the mistake of thinking there's a lot more work to do. And even though there
Yeah.
is, what I really today is really I really feel like I want to invite everyone to know that when you do your growth through the emotional process, it
Mm,
really is efficient. So all the problems, all the things, it's an efficient way to address things that may feel like, oh my God, I don't even want to get started because it's going to be forever. It's going to take so
yeah.
long.
Yeah.
And
It
emotional
feels so
training
big. Sorry, go ahead.
it feels so big, but emotional training and coaching and it's the most efficient path to development. It is the path to development.
Yeah. And it really is about simple steps. I mean, literally, if I'm in a bad place, if I did nothing but get outside every day for 10 minutes and take a walk, I will start to
Yeah.
feel a shift. It's not going to fix everything. It's not but one little step in a new direction really can start that new story. And so many times we just get stuck. And that's why I so believe in coaching. Sometimes we need someone to walk alongside us and say, I hear
Yeah.
you. I get what you're feeling. It makes sense. Completely acceptable. So now what? And we just need someone sometimes to walk alongside us and nudge us along to start rewriting that
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, very, very much so. And before just a wrap up that we do here, Amy, I want to add because I really love what you said about the stories and how's it serving other people. And that's been something really big and life changing for me and our clients here is like, how is it serving you to believe that, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
how's
it's
it,
good.
it's really, really powerful. And I'm adding to the repertoire, how's it serving other people to believe that? And that's a really important thing because I know, people care about people so deeply, and having the emotional
Mhm.
intelligence to actually have that care do what it is that we mean for it to do and for us to receive it is so important. And we have so much power to create the world that we want to live in. And I'm
Yep,
so glad
yep.
that the institute is doing so much around this. And I want to have make sure people know how to get in touch with you. And so give us where do we follow you, and all the information about the institute that people need.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, so our website is isei.com, Institute for Social and Emotional Intelligence. So isei.com. And when you go there, you can find out about our classes, our training programs, our assessments, etc. My own LinkedIn page, I try to post articles every
Yeah.
single day about emotional intelligence of some shape or form. So Amy Sargent on LinkedIn, I'd be happy if anyone wanted to connect there and
Cool.
follow us. And then we've got groups that we've established, a positive psychology group, emotional intelligence for educators. And so I'd be happy to invite
Good.
anyone into those groups once they connect on LinkedIn.
All right, great. I'm so glad everybody knows how to follow you. And our last question is one that I ask every person that comes on this show, and it could seem like a little bit of a morbid question, but it's actually a really inspiring one. So Amy, with all that you've taught us so far, and all that you've been putting into the world, and all the changes that you've inspired in people, uh, all the things that you've learned, there's so much to share, and yet I find that uh, there's sort of an essence of what it is that is sort of the biggest thing or the main thing that each person is really here to contribute. So if
Mm.
this were sort of like, for whatever weird reason, the last moment that you could give a message to the world, and
Wow.
this is the one that they would carry forward, like Amy taught me this, and this would be going, through the generations, and making an impact, what would that message be?
What a question. That is loaded.
I know.
I love that question. I'm going to start asking people that. I think it's this emotion that you're feeling right now. I know it feels overwhelming. It feels like it's too much. It's too big. Recognizing that it's temporary
Mm.
and that it will pass, and we have a choice to make that happen. So it's that freedom of having a choice, no matter what you're feeling, how scared, anxiety ridden, worrisome, overwhelmed you're feeling. It's a temporary feeling, and there are things we can do to move to start rewriting that new story. So I think it's that same thing as you've been saying. It's that power of choice that we can make a difference. We can take a new step in a new direction. We
I love
don't
it.
have to stay stuck.
I love it. We don't have to be ruled by our emotions,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and we get to utilize them. Amy, it has been so fun collaborating with you today. I really invite our audience to just take everything in that you've been learning today with us, really into your heart, and take it into your soul and your cells, and really internalize it and allow it to be implemented in all areas of your life, because all your greatest accomplishments lie ahead of you with that emotional intelligence really propelling
Yeah,
you. Thanks for being with
yeah.
us today, and just so great to have you here, Amy, and everyone take care until we see you next time.
Thanks, Tracy. Bye bye.